Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Fellow citizens, following the sequence of events, Uganda seems to be at political crossroads.
I'm not a servant of anybody.
Madam, I know the law.
As such, Alternative Digital brings you the Interface Show with retired Colonel Dr. Kiza Besige.
Let's keep on the same page on Alternative Digital,
As he gives you the alternatives on the transition question, rule of law, human rights and freedom, youth inclusion in governance, economic stagnation, as he confirms.
I'll be always here every Friday from midday to 2 p.m. Be there.
Don't miss the live discussion on the Alternative Uganda, Digital TV Facebook pages, and the Alternative Uganda YouTube channel.
At first, we hit your gadgets with our state-of-the-art digitalized mobile studio with the debate on the road behind the wheels. Later, we launched our magnificent studios located on Plot 1A, Sewagude Close, Lukulinanganda, Machindye, Kampala, where we bring to you our must-watch shows like The Mighty Drive, Monday to Friday, 8 a.m., Hotline, Mondays, 7 p.m. As for legal matters, Twins at Bar, Tuesdays, 11 a.m., Wednesdays, 6 p.m. is Afro-Caribbean Link, where we connect Africa with the Caribbean. Voltage on Thursdays, 7 p.m., featuring a youthful panel. Interface with Dr. Kiza Besige every Friday, 12 p.m. with his call to action against injustices. Snap Talk, Saturdays, 6 p.m. with the trio. A must-watch, The Political Dice, Sundays, 8 p.m. with the duo that never stammers, and so much more. Watch us live on all our social media platforms. We are the Alternative Digital. Real issues, real talk.
The Alternative Dig Talk. Real issues, real talk.
Tukulikeyo mukuwumula mukone gatiddwa ku mugenyi waffe ow'olunaku lwaleero Engineer Olanya Olenge. Tugenda kubanga twogera nsonga za gold ate munnaye ne impact ya na butya bwa impact ze gold mining and the impacts ennungi ate nembi. Kakati munnaye ekyenjawulo nti we are going to be discussing I think it will be 90% English because he's very comfortable mu Luzungu Oluganda sirwa buli omu. So ngenda kukubiriza nnyo nti tofaayo nja kubanga nkuddiramuko munnaye mu Luganda nga nkuchipingiramuko katono nnyo ng'abeena mayingo nabalabye nga basanyuse bali kubanga basiikuula gold nga bagamba kuva we bazuula gold bo tebakyalina na bwavu omuntu okeera ng'onyuse n'emitwalo gyana ku kinaana so nga they are very happy people. So that is one of the impact, though it is good, it is not a bad one. Nti baakera ku makya bo ne bazuula gold na mayingo era ne gufuukira ddala kati omulimu ogw'okubanga baakera ku makya ne bagenda ne bayiikuula gold oyo ne batunda ne beefunira akasimbi. Ngenda kubanga nnyaniza omumbejja atulamuseeko awo n'omugenyi waffe agenda kubanga ate naye atulamusaako.
Well, good morning. Mwasuze Mtaranga Pawalundi. Happy independence, 62 years down the road. Munange ngatwefuga. So happy independence to all of our viewers. Mwabali nyokubanga ate Mutwe Kumide Konse, Mumite Wodedi, and I welcome you on today's edition of the Mighty Drive Show. And in the studios, Namuvide Watuganda, Engineer Olanya Olenge agenda kubanga ate atulamusako the discussion egenda kubeera nnyo mu Luzungu era nga bwe tugenda okubanga twogera ku nsonga za gold wano mu Uganda. We cannot go away without talking about the 62 years of independence. I actually saw a post of his about the UBOS report census Kamaliliza just of recent. So he's going to be commenting about that and also commenting about the 62 years of independence. Yeah, and then we dive into the topical discussion of the day. It's the Mighty Drive, and we're live on our social media platforms, the Alternative Uganda and Digital TV. You can be part of the discussion by commenting, and then Mombeja will be reading the comments before we come to the end of the show. So you can use Facebook. If the network fails on Facebook, you can also use our YouTube. That's the Alternative Uganda. Please like and follow us on all our social media platforms, and then I'll be telling you more of what we actually do. Happy Independence to you. I think let's start it at that.
62 years
yes.
of Uganda's existence. I think it's a milestone. We have to see if there is a lot on table to appreciate and celebrate, if indeed we are practically independent. But I think it's a step in growth. It's a young democracy that is growing. So,
okay. What do you think? Are we practically independent, or we are just independent on paper?
Essentially, yes. Uganda has been trying its best to steer the track record of saying we're independent. Yes, but of course, you cannot be an independent state if most of your support to your budget is done by the foreigners. Literally, independence in its state should be when you can stand on your on yourself to finance your budget and run the country's affairs without influence of other stakeholders.
Okay.
That is why you will hear political actors say that you can't have a double-sided government that criticizes the West from this side but also receives from the others. So it's a balance of political influence. So you will find the state trying to balance its interest vis-a-vis what they claim political meddling or influence of other forces. You can't expect to be given something for free and you go scot-free. So it's indeed true that the US or any other foreign power would give money to Uganda, but in the long run they will be interested. They will want to have a say by sanctioning your officials if they claim they are corrupt, if they claim they are
human rights violators.
Those kind of issues. So it's a complex situation. But that is how the geopolitics of the world runs. That's how the world plays its politics. But in the context of a growing democracy like Uganda's, I would think we are on a 50-50 scale, or even 40-60 scale.
No.
But I would give my credit to other, if you see the Sahel states, if you look at the Sahel states, the Burkina Fasos, they seem to be having young leaders who have taken power, of course, by gun, who seem to be driving a thorough direction of the previous colonial or post-independence leaders like Kwame Nkrumah, whatever the Patrice Lumumbas were pushing for. If you see these young leaders in the Sahel states, those three countries that have left ECOWAS and are saying, no, this is the direction, they're pushing out the Western powers like France. They're saying we're going to run our own race. I think that is the better direction of independence. That's what I would call independence.
Oh.
Yes.
Could we actually stand when we actually don't have the Western power, or we don't have the Western influence in these African countries?
Do you think Uganda is bold enough to say, since the US is imposing sanctions on our officials, the US even put sanctions on the Speaker of Parliament, the UK placed sanctions on the Speaker of Parliament, the whole Speaker, the number 3 in the country. Do you think Uganda is bold enough or independent enough to say we're going to place sanctions or even declare the ambassador of the US a persona non grata? Do we have that capacity? Are we bold enough to say this as it is?
Yes.
Or we go behind the shadows of the deep state and write apology and make things work when we say different things on the media. So I think we're not as bold as a country. I think recently Namibia is taking a strong stand as saying if you want to come to our country, you're from USA, you're from wherever, you pay some amount of money for visa and we can deny or accept.
Yes.
That is the direction African countries should.
The same process we go through.
Yeah.
So, do you know that Americans, when they're coming to Uganda, don't pay for visa? Do they?
It is a free
American
entry.
citizens come in freely, but when Ugandans are going to America, it's a tug of war. Why do we have to have that imbalance of power?
That is actually one of the ways
So we
to
are not
attract
really
investors
sovereign
in the
as it
country.
is. It is not about investment. This is about free movement of people globally.
Tourism brings in money, maybe. It is one way of attracting tourists into the country.
No, that's just a wrong foreign policy, perhaps. But you see, that's what I was telling you. There are countries that consider themselves superweight, superpowers.
Yes.
Okay?
Do they consider themselves
America,
or they are actually superpowers?
They've created you see, there's even a picture that they use the media. Okay, if you see the way the US uses the media, if you see the way the UK uses the media, of course the UK plays the politics using BBC. The US does it with CNBC, the CNNs. Okay, even when you look at how the complex of power plays, let me give you a scenario of how the media plays in all this. You see the war going on in Gaza now.
Yeah.
If you read the headlines of CNN and BBC, you will see them saying, Israel at war. If you read the headlines of Al Jazeera, which is playing the Arabs' perspective, they will say, genocide in Gaza.
Yes.
You get the conflict?
Yes.
Genocide in Gaza versus
Israel
at war. There's a difference there.
Yes.
So they use the media very well to their advantage to play and shape the public opinion. So it's just a decoy. America was humiliated in Afghanistan, in Iraq, in Iran, in Syria. They ran away. So if you're a superpower, as you claim, you've lost wars. They've lost battles. They may not be reported officially on the media, but we've seen that. So it's just gymnastics. It's a mindset game. Yeah.
Okay, we could look at how Uganda has been a little bit before we go into our discussion of the day. Like, do you look at the journey of Uganda after independence and Uganda before independence? Do you think Uganda is heading for the better or for the worst?
I think one thing that Uganda has lost is we have allowed so many people to tell our stories as Uganda. We've not really told our own stories. Some of us who grew up in the M7'S era, we've just read and watched about Amin.
Exactly.
We've just read and watched about Obote. We've not really experienced it. But now of late, when you start to understand the dynamics of how the politics was played then, vis-a-vis what is now, you'll realize that a lot of Uganda's history was altered to shape the interest of certain powers. Whatever was said about the founding father of Uganda, Milton Obote, may not be as true as the reality that happened at that time. Whatever was said about Idi Amin Dada may not be as true as whatever happened on the ground. Literally, some of us are beginning to believe that Amin was one of Uganda's best presidents. Surprisingly. But we were fed with Western propaganda by the Western media that Amin was indeed a very bad person.
Yes.
But when you read certain scripts and certain literature, you will begin to realize that indeed, at Amin's time, as president of Uganda, the economy was not as we see it now. By that time, Uganda was more powerful and Uganda was sending aid to other countries.
Yeah, true.
You can't imagine Uganda was sending aid to other countries.
Yes.
Like now we are receiving aid through USAID, UK aid and all that kind of crap. But Uganda was sending aid that time. Uganda was definitely independent by the time Amin was in charge. I think Uganda was independent by Amin's time.
And then now?
So, as we speak now, we are playing to the interests of so many foreign powers who are not visible at fair play. So me, what I think about Uganda post and before independence, the history of Uganda or the real happenings of Uganda was not put in context, was really fabricated, and a lot of scripts have been changed about the history of Uganda. The real truth about Uganda's context before and after independence is not what we have been taught in school. It's not what we've been seeing in other literature. The truth is what I've said, and they know it.
Is it intentional?
Yes, it's purposeful. when you control the media, when you control the public narrative, it is what is perceived. If I say you're a bad lady, and you don't speak about your side, or you're not given chance to speak about your side, and I keep repeating a lie 100 times, the 101st or the 101st time, the lie becomes true.
Yes.
That is what has been told in Uganda. Consecutive lies have been told and fabricated to shape certain political propaganda narratives, and we have Ugandans have embraced certain things wholeheartedly. But personally, I think Idi Amin was a very good president for Uganda. Personally, I believe so. I can defend this now because I've at least gotten some literature. Yes, there were certain mishaps and there, which happens even in this regime. We see people being abducted. We see even in this government. But it wasn't. It's not broadcasted and promulgated as we see it in Amin's regime, because Amin disagreed with the West openly. Okay, and that's why perhaps the West painted Amin a bloodthirsty person. But Amin was a very good president of Uganda, and by Amin's time, Uganda was indeed independent, not as we see it now. That is my honest truth about independence.
Then one wonders, why aren't Ugandans telling their own stories to counter the lies that have been told about
I am a Ugandan. I am saying my part of the story. You are supposed to do your part. To do your part of the story. Don't expect an old man seated somewhere.
Because they experienced it. What I may
They
say,
were there.
I have read. But we have Ugandans who experienced the Amin's regime.
Yes, they're there. Have a chat with them. Have a chat with them. They will tell you. And by the way, if you read certain literature, they will tell you that even in the Amin regime, not all the killings were being done by government. Some of them were being done by unscrupulous characters trying to soil the government and create
to paint a
destabilization.
bad picture.
You know, when you sit, I will encourage you to read some investigative journals, or even watch some investigative scripts. You will see how power plays. If I want to remove government, I can sit now and say, I am 28, I want to be president by 70. I'll start playing my script now. That is exactly what happens in the previous regimes. It's deep, very deep. For you to realize it, you really need to give yourself time to understand how power was played then. It was a very complex situation. There were people who were patient and knew what they wanted and scripted themselves well. Yes.
Could there be time where Uganda is now back on track to what we actually expected? Because now the picture that you've painted, it's like we were going a certain direction, and then along the way, you actually went to a different direction.
Not everything that was in the previous governments were good. Of course, there were ill doings.
Yes.
The same with this government. But I think credit needs to be given where it's due. President Museveni has run his race. He has done his part. We need to give him credit. And of course, also to guide and critique government where things have not been right. This is this is outside the political scape, whether you're NRM, DP, or wherever. At a certain time, it will be Uganda. Okay? We're running on the same blood, black, yellow, red. It's at the same point Uganda. So we need to have a very honest conversation where we need to take this country. What is hanging in balance is what next after Museveni? That's a question that everyone lives on.
Yeah.
I have had engagements with friends of mine who just carry their passports everywhere they go. They're not certain about Uganda's next future. So if we're discussing, if we're now celebrating Uganda at 62, can we start to think about a Uganda after Museveni? How do we discuss this transition? Yes, people have argued that transition is happening, but there are Ugandans who have decided to refuse to understand or even refuse to acknowledge that there are anomalies happening, there are situations, there are uncertainties, and this is even deep-seated within top officials in government. Ministers are panicking, MPs are panicking, everyone doesn't seem to know what is happening. Those in the military are confused. So we need to have this conversation. A country that has certainties, a country that has good predictions of whatever they know is going to happen. Predictability of a country is very good, not this kind of uncertainty. That's what I could say about independence.
Okay, as we celebrate 62 years, are there some things we could be celebrating in terms of development?
Yeah, a lot, definitely a lot. The infrastructure has improved. We applaud this government for doing what they did. Of course, if you talk to certain cadres in the UPC, they will say whatever was done by NRM was basically renovation of what the UPC did. That's on a lighter note. I can't really.
But you always take up from the person you are.
you know, let me tell you one thing. I want to give credit to the UPC government.
Okay.
They did a lot for this country. If you look at most, if not all, the regional referral hospitals, even Mulago, all this infrastructure was the UPC government, by the way. That is the whole point. The UPC government did a lot for this country than it's being celebrated as we speak. That is the truth. You would find, let me tell you something. In the UPC government, you would travel from Kampala or from Busoga to go study in Kitgum, my home district.
Yeah.
Like the likes of Aronda Nyakarema did. Studied in Kitgum High.
Yes.
It was a purposeful arrangement by government to allow Ugandans to integrate. Okay?
Yeah.
Now, in this government, it is difficult to find someone moving from let's say, West Nile, going to study in Intare.
Intare school.
Because the government has not made a deliberate effort for even purpose of reintegration, cultural exchange, you know. So even by that time, traditional schools were everywhere. So meaning if I go and study in Kitgum or Gulu or Lira or Pakwach, or go and study maybe in Bushenyi or any other part of Uganda, I will still get the same training. That is not true now. Those days, you will not hear about private schools. It is government
Schools.
and they were all doing well. So it's a shame that we have government schools owned by powerful officials in government, ministers, wherever the case, and members of parliament or key officials in government, and they're charging people expensively, the local wana inchi, and we are not even regulating them. Government cannot even have a say that private schools should charge this amount of money because the Minister of Education perhaps is owning
We're
schools.
actually in a free market economy, so
Well, I will speak more on the free market economy, even in the gold context. You'll see it later on. That yes, everything has its good and the bad.
yes.
Yes.
But sometimes the bad of opening the economy worked so much against Ugandans because they privatized all government assets. Government is as broke as you see them.
So if
Serena used
minister
to be for
comes
government.
to
Actually, it used
Minister
to be for
Kasaija
government.
comes
So
and
many
tells
of
us
these
that
facilities
we don't have
used to
money.
be for government. There were banks that were owned by government and they were sold at $1. Are you aware? $1 because of opening up the economy. So some of the fiscal policies that were taken up, some of the interventions that the government accepted when they're coming to power, of course, the IMF was pressing them. World Bank was coming and pounding on Uganda, but I think we should have stuck to the previous systems.
Oh.
Because now we are indebted as a country because we were accepting the systems that were being brought in. But of course you can't, you will blame them, but you never know what kind of political deals were struck by the new government when President Museveni took power. But I think those decisions to liberalize the economy is not as good as we see them now. Because it has failed public schools, it has failed public hospitals. Most public institutions have failed because of that, opening up the economy. Yes.
Okay. There are people who are actually saying that the biggest problem of Uganda right now is President Museveni.
So
you
what?
agree
So
with
what after
those
President
sayings?
Museveni leaves? President Museveni is immortal. At some point, he will leave. Take it or leave it. He will leave. He has been of late preaching that he's going to heaven. He has a feeling that he's going to heaven. So he knows that he's going. But then I have asked the question, as young Ugandans and people who form the critical mass, what next after Museveni? What conversations are we having? At this point, I would want a situation whereby I would see Robert Chagulanyi and the team at NUP going to have discussions with NRM and saying, where is the future of Uganda? At what point are we going to start sitting and embracing the style of politics in Kenya?
And that's the dialogue.
Where Raila Odinga will go and have a discussion with President Ruto.
But these people are always saying we can't sit with Mr. Museveni.
What is wrong about that? What is wrong about
that?
that? What is wrong with Bobby Wine facing Museveni and saying, gentlemen, you've done your part, but can we do this way?
According to him,
What is wrong? I think it's very wrong. It's having a very explosive politics for us even to say, I cannot have a sitting or a meal with an NRM person because I am red. That's wrong. The bottom line is we are Ugandans. We all carry the same flag.
You see do you see the direction, Honorable Norbert Mautu?
For as long as we don't accept the politics of having conversations, if I have a very strong disagreement with President Museveni, I can't. It doesn't help me telling it to the media. It doesn't. But if I have an opportunity to face the man, I'd rather face Museveni and tell him this is wrong. What do you think he will lose by telling Museveni in his face? Let us say there's an open meeting organized, the media is there, and there's a discussion, and it's more just like you see the presidential
But the people
debate.
that have actually met president have come out with different
if Bobby Wine
statements.
is willing to meet, if Bobby Wine is willing to go on a presidential debate, why not meet President Museveni? Organize the same space. That's what I'm trying to say. It is never wrong, but it is a wrong perception created actually as a balance of power in the opposition, balance of power in the deep state, that I will be branded a mole if I meet this
President
person.
Museveni.
That's wrong. That is actually, if that perception is not dealt with, I've seen Honorable Nomat about struggling with that branding. I don't know how far he has gone with it, but I think it's a wrong branding for Uganda. For as long as we want to grow, that has to change.
Are you trying to insinuate that if our opposition political players don't discuss power transition, Uganda is headed for the dogs after President Museveni?
Me, I can tell you one thing. You've seen explosive Twitter threats. That dictates a very wrong direction for this country. Very wrong direction for this country. Everyone has to worry where we're headed if we can't have a discussion. Me, I see nothing wrong. If I disagree with anyone, we must disagree on issues.
Isn't there a possibility that President Museveni might be won in an election? And then it might cause a change.
You see, let me tell
in
you
power.
something. It's even beautiful that President Museveni is aging. You know, with age comes wisdom. With age comes, there's a way you tone down. Okay? If you've been observing President Museveni of 2001, is different from the one of 2024.
Yes.
So let us appreciate that with his age, it's even better that at this point it's now easier to discuss with him. Because he sees things now at a different perspective.
But do you think President Museveni is willing to discuss power transition with the people of the opposition?
Why not?
Because he does not see Uganda without him.
Has that platform been offered?
We had the iPod. And then these political parties shunned away.
There is a platform.
So that means there was a platform, but there were people who opted out of the platform.
But there are people
so who
who
do you
are
blame
there.
in this case? Who do you blame in this case? Who do you blame in this case?
Everyone.
The responsibility of Uganda lies both within those who control the echelons of power in opposition and those who control it in the state. So it's two-way. If one says we are here in iPod, the other says we are not coming, who do you blame? The answer is for the public. But you can clearly see the script. We need to tone down from the very polarized style of politics. That's the whole point.
What's the role citizens play, or Ugandans actually have to play when it comes to changing each and everything?
Our biggest problem has been that citizens have not been proactive. Citizens have not been built to be proactive. Citizens are not civically aware and cautious. Okay, they can't demand for even their leaders to be on the same table to discuss. They can't demand for accountability, and that has been could be purposeful because there are certain entities that are supposed to empower citizens, like the Uganda Human Rights Commission is supposed to ensure that citizens engage.
And actually,
they're not doing their job. So there are platforms that actually must be disbanded, or perhaps the people who are there who have been sleeping on jobs should be removed, like Uganda Human Rights Commission. Are you aware that by law, Uganda Human Rights Commission should have translated the Constitution of the Republic of Uganda in all the local languages in this country?
Yes.
They have slept on job. It's shame. They have slept on job. They're mandated by law. That law was promulgated into 1995. We've just seen series of amendments. Nothing. Which local language have you seen the Constitution has been translated in?
Luganda.
I've not seen any. If it is Luganda, it's not done by government. It's just by few people who want, who are just making local efforts. So it's as bad as you see. We have weak institutions, and we've made very many powerful individuals. Okay. So the balance of power in this country is quite disheartening, if I could say. Because yes, these elders will fade off, they will go. But the country remains for us, the young people. How do we handle it? So that means the young people of Uganda must accept to be part of the equation. If they're not accepting, then they must get themselves involved in this discussion. Even for transition, even for power, they must be involved. You cannot say the young people who form a critical majority in this country, over 80%, of course you can criticize the data of UBOS. They have also been showed in their work. But the young people certainly form a critical number of the mass of the country.
Yes.
You can't say we have only 4 members of parliament representing young people. What a joke.
Is it about quantity or quality?
Whatever the case, the representation, democracy is about numbers. Am I right?
You are.
Yes. So just look at that balance of power. You find a bunch of old fellows in parliament sleeping, and they're the ones making decisions for the majority of young people. So young people must wake up. We are also to blame for whatever we see.
Even the fathers that are representing us have not done.
You are affected at the job market because you don't have decision makers. I want to appreciate the young leaders. Jacob Ayer of Uganda, of the National Youth Council, or Court Boniface of the ONSA. I've seen Honorable Nyamutoro, the female youth, Honorable Court Boniface, and the other members of parliament, and those in the youth space. They have tried their best. They've even pushed. But they are stepped down on. Because they are few in number. It's about numbers. But still, as those outside, we need to organize ourselves, and organize ourselves as young people in this country. Without organization, we can't move. Why the Kenyans, Gen Zs made a clarion demand and saw certain things moving? Because they were organized. Yeah. We are not organized.
We are disorganized.
Let's have your comment on UBOS report before we go for a commercial break. On
the UBOS report, I have literally had conversations with so many people. Personally, I've written articles and opinions on this right before the census came on, by the way. I started criticizing UBOS in 2021 for purposefully doing things wrongly. One thing I've learned, UBOS has been sleeping on job. Two, where UBOS has reached, we need to take on them legally. And I'm thinking of organizing a few young people and we take on UBOS legally. The third thing, some of the leaders in UBOS have to take responsibility for the errors they've been making. Not only this time, they've been making these errors progressively. If you look at data from other international, yes, they've been making errors. UBOS has been sleeping on job for the past 10, 15 years.
But they say that the results of the 2014 census are correct.
Let me tell you something. UBOS has been sleeping. Even if you compare the data of UBOS 2014 to data and statistics at the local level districts, you will see wrong data from hospitals, because there's data at hospitals. Yeah. Police stations, there's data. Not so? At all levels of government, you see data, and they all don't compare well with UBOS's data. Look at what international agencies who do their own data surveys because they want to give aid, bank on. Look at data that USAID has, data that UNICEF has. You will see totally different data from UBOS's data. The population of people of Busoga is different from what UNICEF provides is different from what UBOS provides. Okay? What the hospitals are providing, the general hospitals are providing, is different from whatever we see. So now, one thing because my first indicator was, how come every year, every now and then, UBOS is saying Karamoja is poor? Actually, is poor, competing with Karamoja. If this time it's actually, next time it's Karamoja. How? What are the yardsticks of poverty? That was my first line of questioning. What are the yardsticks of
poverty?
Poverty, it means that I don't have money? Yes. Okay, fine, I may be poor. But how about if you look at it in this way that I don't have money, but I have maybe assets that I can liquidate? So now, I took the perspective of Karamoja. Karamoja is the most mineralized region in this country. It has the biggest minerals in Uganda, the biggest mineral deposits. Number 2 in Africa after DRC Congo is Karamoja in wealth, mineral wealth. Do you know how much a gram of gold costs? A gram of gold is going to 300,000. A small thing like this. So meaning a Karamojon can go wash gold, and in 10 hours is 1 million rich. In 10 hours or 5 hours. So do you say that person is poor?
Are they allowed to mine that gold?
They are mining, of course, artisans. We'll discuss that gold thing. But I'm just trying to give you perspective of wealth, okay?
Okay.
They have land to do farming. Karamoja is not as dry as they put it in the media. The media has been used to paint Karamoja bad. Karamoja is not as poor as they've portrayed them. It's a mindset game. It's a mindset war. It's a supreme...
And yet we have a minister in charge of Karamoja affairs.
That is all wrong. When they give you... Let me tell you, if I tell you, my sister, you're poor. Tomorrow again I say you're poor. You are poor, you're bogus, you are this, okay? I trash it on you.
Yes.
It's a generational mindset game. So I will develop and I will grow with an inferiority complex. That is what they have done on Karamoja and the Acholi people. The Acholi have land. The most arable land in this country is in northern Uganda, in Acholi in particular. Okay? They are the food basket of of Uganda. They're the ones feeding Uganda. Surprisingly, that is not reflected on the wealth. There was a time we used to have what they call the white gold. Do you know what is white gold? Sim. A kilo was going for 15 to 20,000 on the world market, and they were buying from the ground. And there were bulks and tons of sim. Then Mafias came and soiled it, came and started mixing sim with soil and sand so that the world market loses track of northern Uganda, sim. And so many syndicates that are played so that the narrative that you're poor is felt, so that you feel that you're really poor. How can I be poor when I own thousands and thousands of acres of land? That is worth millions, even billions of shillings. I can't be poor on that yardstick. I may not have the cash now, but I'm having resources. I'm having things that I can call assets that I can liquidate, okay? So I can't be poor. So I don't agree with the context of saying Northern Uganda is poor, or Acholi is poor, Karamoja is poor, West Nile is poor. We are rich, very rich. That is where Yubos lost it in the first instance. So even now when Busoga woke up and said, hey, we are the most fertile region in terms of giving birth, how do you say we are declining in population? So this time around, Yubos had been making these errors, these deliberate errors for a while. Not until this time around they were caught pants down. The whole country is like, But they've been doing it purposefully for a while. This has been going on. Now let me tell you, do you know what we're doing in Acholi sub-region? We're actually trying to generate debate and generate initiatives to have independent research entities. To do research, we're not banking on government data. We're going to do our own research because we have statisticians around. We will do our own research, mobilize using the local structures, do our own study, then we compare with government. You will be shocked that the data that government has provided through you, boss, is a whole total mess. And you know what they do? Purposefully, there are people in government who use this data, who use people in UBOS to create this kind of falsified data or raw and refined data.
For what intentions?
For what intention?
These are big
number
claims.
one, to create that inferiority complex that I've said, that you poor, you accept it, and then you are destroyed mentally. Number two, they use it as a way to lobby for government funding, for resources from these development partners. So you're using Northern Uganda, or you're using Acholi or Karamoja to call them poor, to lobby for funding that you steal massively. You've seen what has happened in Northern Uganda. With the PRDP funds, with the NUSAF funds, a lot of money was stolen. Even money that was supposed to help people who were just on their knees from the war of LRA was stolen. People are greedy in this country. And it's a shame. None of them is even in Lozira. They're all working scot-free. I was shocked to see somebody was convicted for corruption. He even confessed. The president has pardoned the person. It's a very complex situation. I personally want to have a conversation with the president on corruption. And I think he's not serious about corruption. Personally, I think the president or his aides are not telling him the truth or the reality on the ground. Ugandans are very angry.
And that's what he was saying.
The level of anger in the public is really overwhelming. That this country is just sitting on a time bomb. One day things will explode. And we need to have these conversations. There are people who have access to the president and never tell him the truth. I have had access to the president several times, and I've told him my mind. That is where we should go. This level of psychophancy I see in the NRM, everyone going there and say, we should tell the president the truth. Sometimes we blame the president, but let me tell you this. Sometimes we blame the president. But the level of psychophancy around the president is what kills the country, is what fails the president in making decisions. When we feed the president with the wrong intelligence information, with the wrong data, with the wrong information of what is in the public, we lose out. So that is why the president at some point started to do his own things, to do his own benchmarks. You'll be shocked the president can call you to find out something. He does that. Why? Because he believes the system around him is not giving him sometimes the right information, most times in case.
Is there a possibility that Ugandans are beyond 45, as it is indicated by UBOS?
The population? UBOS says we have not, literally they're saying we're not moving in numbers.
We haven't.
They're saying that actually have lost population almost in 1 million. But let me ask you this, let me tell you this. There was no war for the past time. There was no famine. COVID came, yes, but how many people did COVID kill? That is if COVID indeed came through and killed people.
No, it came.
Whatever the case, I don't believe in the COVID scam as well. But indeed, you see this complex. The things that would kill people in big numbers would be war. What war is Uganda facing?
We haven't faced a war.
Yes.
We're only having terrorists.
Come on, how many people have died because of terrorism? The numbers don't even reach 500 people. Even in Karamoja, where there is some bit of insecurity, the numbers don't go to that much.
Maybe indicators show that...
the president just needs to know that one thing that has gone wrong is the institutions are very weak, they're not doing the right job, and the president must know there are powerful individuals that are running this country, with or without him. Okay. Sometimes certain things happen in this country and the president also gets shocked like you.
Especially issues to do with corruption. He didn't know. He's just finding out from a few people.
I like your satire.
We are going in for a short commercial break. We'll be come back and dive into our topical discussion of the day. A very good morning.
Thank you.